December 25th, 6:30 in the morning. My phone won't stop ringing. 36 frantic family members are screaming, "Where are you? What happened to our dinner?" And I, Eleanor, from this luxury cruise ship where I am celebrating in complete freedom, laugh like I haven't laughed in years and tell them I'm celebrating Christmas, just not with you. Because after discovering they had secretly designated me as the official babysitter to watch 12 children while they enjoyed my $140,000 dinner, I decided to cancel everything at the last minute and leave them with exactly what they deserved: hunger and total desperation. But to understand how I reached this glorious moment, I have to tell you who I am. My name is Eleanor. I am 72 years old, and for my entire life, I have been the one who fixes everything, the one who takes care of everyone, the one who never says no. I have been a widow for 10 years. I have 4 grown children, 11 grandchildren, and a large house I inherited from my late husband. A house that has always been the family's refuge whenever they needed something: money, food, childcare, cleaning up after their parties. I was always there, with open arms and a heart willing to bleed for them. For decades, I believed that was love. That a good mother, a devoted grandmother, should sacrifice herself without limits for her family. Every time my daughter Caroline called me saying, "Mom, I need you to watch the kids," I dropped everything. Every time my son Kevin showed up with money problems, I opened my wallet. Every time Mark, my arrogant son-in-law, treated me as if I were his personal employee, I smiled and obeyed. Because that's how I was taught. Because that's how I thought it should be. My house was always full of noise, of messes, of demands. "Grandma, I'm hungry. Mom, do this laundry. Eleanor, clean this up." Never a please, never a thank you, always orders. And I, like a fool, running from one place to another, cooking for 20 people when I only expected 5, buying gifts they didn't even thank me for later, watching grandchildren whose own parents preferred not to deal with. But this year, something changed. It all started in October, when Caroline came to my house with that fake smile I knew so well. "Mom, we're already organizing Christmas. It's going to be spectacular, the biggest one we've ever had." And, of course, she expected me to pay for everything, cook everything, clean everything, as always. But this time, there was something different in her tone, something that made me suspicious. The weeks went by and the demands grew. "Mom, we need you to buy the biggest turkey. Mom, order the premium catering. Mom, 36 people are coming. Make sure there's enough of everything." And I, as always, obeying, spending my savings, my pension, the money it took me years of widowhood to put together. $140,000 in total for a dinner that was supposed to be for family, but that every day felt more like an event where I was the invisible hostess. What hurt the most was how they spoke to me. Mark would arrive at my house as if it were his own, open my refrigerator without permission, help himself to my food without asking. "Eleanor, get me a coffee," he'd say as he lounged on my armchair as if he were the king of the house. His daughter Haley, my 18-year-old granddaughter, wouldn't even look up from her phone when I entered the room. To her, I was part of the furniture, useful but invisible. And Kevin, my own son, only ever showed up when he needed something. "Mom, lend me $500. Mom, watch my kids this weekend. Mom, I need you to sign this paper." Never a visit just to see me. Never a "How are you, Mom?" He always arrived with his hands out and his heart closed. But Caroline was the worst. She organized my life without consulting me. "Mom, you can't go out on Saturday because the kids are coming over. Mom, cancel your plans because I need you to cook. Mom, don't be selfish, the family needs you." The family needed me, yes, but as a free servant, not as a person with her own feelings and desires. For years, I swallowed all these humiliations, thinking it was my duty, my destiny as a mother and grandmother, until this fateful December arrived and I discovered the truth that broke my heart, but also set me free forever. December arrived with its false promise of family joy. Like every year, I was already mentally preparing to be the holiday slave. But this time, things started differently from the first day of the month. Caroline arrived at my house, accompanied by Mark and Haley, all with conspiratorial faces that I should have recognized immediately. "Mom, sit down. We need to talk about Christmas." Caroline said to me with that sweet voice she only used when she wanted something very big from me. Mark settled into my favorite armchair, as always, and Haley didn't even look up from her damn phone. This year is going to be special. Very special. Special for whom? That's what I should have asked. But no. I smiled like the fool I had been my whole life and asked, "What do you have in mind?" As if I didn't already know that everything was going to fall on my tired shoulders and my increasingly empty wallet. Well, Mark began with that arrogance that made my stomach turn. "We've decided that this house is perfect for a big celebration. 36 people. All the cousins, all the uncles and aunts, all the kids. An epic Christmas that we'll remember forever." And of course, when he said "we've decided," he meant they had decided for me, without consulting me, as always. Haley finally spoke, without looking up. "Grandma, it's going to be awesome, but we need everything to be perfect. First-class food, incredible decorations, gifts for everyone. We need." As if she were going to contribute anything more than her spoiled presence. Caroline leaned toward me with those manipulative eyes I knew so well. "Mom, I know it's a lot to ask, but you're the only one who can make this happen. You have the house, you know how to cook, you have the money saved up." Ah, of course. I had everything they wanted to use. "And how much were you thinking of spending?" I asked, though I already knew the right question was how much I was going to spend. Mark laughed with that dismissive laugh that made my blood run cold. "Eleanor, don't worry about the money. Just make sure it's memorable. $140,000 should be enough. $140,000, almost all my savings. The money I had saved with so much effort, denying myself small luxuries, saving every penny of my pension for years." And he spoke as if it were pocket change, as if it were natural for me to pay such an amount for a party where I wouldn't even be treated as a guest, but as an employee. "But Mom," Caroline continued, seeing the shock on my face, "think about it. It's going to be beautiful. The whole family together, the children happy, a magical night, and you'll be the most admired hostess." Hostess. What a deceitful word. I was going to be the invisible worker while they enjoyed my money and my effort. Over the next few days, the requests became direct orders. "Eleanor, order the luxury catering." "Mom, we need wines that are at least $200 a bottle." "Grandma, buy gifts for all the kids, but make sure they're good ones, not just anything." Everything was urgent, everything was necessary, everything was my responsibility. Kevin showed up a week later, as always, only when he needed something. "Mom, I heard about the party. It's great that you're finally doing something big. Something big that I'm doing." As if it were my idea, my wish, my dream. "Hey, since you're going to spend so much, could you lend me $5,000? It's to buy gifts for my kids." $5,000 for gifts, on top of the $140,000 for the party. And of course, he never paid me back. Loans to Kevin were disguised gifts that I gave because I didn't have the courage to say no. But what hurt the most were the conversations I overheard when they thought I wasn't paying attention. Mark talking on the phone. "Yeah, it's going to be incredible. My mother-in-law is paying for everything. We just have to show up and enjoy." Or Haley with her friends. "My grandma is throwing a super expensive party. It's going to be epic. The best part is, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to do anything." Those words stabbed me like daggers. To them, my work, my money, my effort was nothing. I was nothing, just a resource they could exploit without limits and without gratitude. The weeks flew by in a whirlwind of shopping, preparations, and expenses that made my head spin. Every day, my bank account emptied further while my house filled with boxes, decorations, and food for the grand event. And every day, my family treated me worse, as if it were obvious that I should serve, as if it were my natural obligation to sacrifice myself for their fun. Until the moment came that changed everything. The moment I discovered the most painful truth of my life, the betrayal that freed me forever from the chains I had placed on myself. But that story, the part that really matters, the one that explains why 36 people went hungry on Christmas, that comes later. December 20th. 5 days until Christmas, and I'm in my kitchen, surrounded by endless lists, payment receipts, and the constant pressure of a family that demands perfection from me without offering anything in return. My house looks like a warehouse boxes of luxury decorations, expensive wines, wrapped gifts for 36 people, and the confirmation from the most exclusive catering service in the city. Everything paid for with my money, everything organized by my trembling hands. Caroline arrives that afternoon without warning, as always, but this time she brings Megan, my most hypocritical daughter-in-law, the one who always smiles while stabbing me in the back. The two of them enter, speaking in low voices, whispering things I can't quite hear. They sit in my living room as if it were their own, and call to me from the kitchen. "Mom, come here. We need to coordinate the final details," Caroline yells. Coordinate? What an elegant word for give me more orders. I walk out of the kitchen, wiping my hands, already tired of serving without being seen. "Sit down, Eleanor," Megan says with that fake smile that sends shivers down my spine. "We want to make sure everything goes perfectly." And that's when they start talking about the children. 12 children in total, all under 10 years old, all hyperactive, all used to me being their personal babysitter at every family event. "Mom, you know what parties are like when there are so many kids," Caroline begins. "They go crazy, run everywhere, make messes, break things." Yes, I knew that very well. And I also knew who ended up cleaning, watching, and running after them while their parents drank and partied like teenagers without responsibilities. "The good thing is that you have experience with them," Megan says. "You're the only one who can control them. The only one we trust to make them behave." Trust. Another nice word to disguise pure and simple exploitation. Caroline moves closer and takes my hands with that feigned tenderness I knew by heart. "Mom, we need to ask you a very special favor, a favor that only you can do for us." And there it is, the final blow that I should have seen coming for months. "What favor?" I ask, though my stomach is already clenching with anxiety. Megan and Caroline look at each other with complicity, like two criminals coordinating their next heist. "Well, the thing is, the adults really want to enjoy the party this year," Megan says. "It's been a very hard year for everyone. We need to relax, talk, have a few drinks without worrying about." And she pauses dramatically, which sets my nerves on edge. "Without worrying about the kids," Caroline finishes. "We need you to take charge of them for the whole night. Keep them entertained, feed them, bathe them if necessary, and put them to bed when it's time. We need you to be their official babysitter while we, the adults, have a real Christmas celebration." Official babysitter. The words hit me like slaps. I, who am going to pay $140,000 for this party, who will offer my home, my time, my energy, also have to be the employee who watches the children so their parents can ignore their responsibilities. But it's my party too. I manage to whisper with what little dignity I have left. I also want to enjoy it, talk with the family, relax a little. The two of them laugh. They laugh at me, in my own face, in my own house, after asking me to be their free servant. "Oh, Mom, you know how it is," Caroline says condescendingly. "You're different. You like taking care of people. You like to serve. It's your thing. We don't have the patience you have. The patience I have." As if it were a natural gift, and not the result of decades of abuse and manipulation. Megan nods enthusiastically. "Exactly, Eleanor. You're the perfect grandmother, the one all the kids adore. For you, it's easy, natural. For us, it's a heavy burden that keeps us from enjoying ourselves. A heavy burden. Their own children are a heavy burden they prefer to delegate to me. Besides," Caroline continues, "think about it. The adults will be drinking, talking about adult things, laughing at things the kids don't understand. Wouldn't it be better if they were with you? In a more appropriate environment for them? A more appropriate environment, as if they were doing me a favor by saddling me with the responsibility of 12 children for the entire night." My mind started doing painful calculations. $140,000 from my pocket. My house turned into a restaurant and daycare center. My hands serving 36 people. My arms carrying other people's children. My 72-year-old back running after little ones who are not my responsibility. And all the while, their real parents toasting with wines I paid for, laughing over food I bought, celebrating in my house as if they were the guests of honor. "I don't know, girls," I finally said, using all my strength not to explode right then. "It's just that it's 12 kids. That's a lot of responsibility for one person. It was my last attempt to set a boundary, to maintain some semblance of dignity. The two looked at each other again with that complicity that made me feel like a stranger in my own life. "Mom, don't be so dramatic," Caroline says. "You've watched them 1,000 times. It's just one night. One night so the family can have a truly adult celebration." "Yes, Eleanor," Megan adds. "Besides, the kids will keep you company. You won't be alone. You'll be with the best part of the family." The best part. As if the adults were too important to waste their time with me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake thinking about all the previous Christmases, all the times I had given in, all the humiliations I had swallowed with a smile. But this time was different. This time, they didn't just want my money and my house. They wanted my complete freedom. They wanted to officially turn me into their employee while they lived the life I was financing. At 3 in the morning, getting up for a glass of water, I saw a strange glow coming from the living room. It was Caroline's phone, which she had forgotten on the armchair after her visit. The screen lit up every time a notification came in. And there, in that treacherous pre-dawn light, I saw something that would change everything forever. A text message, a group chat called Christmas Without Eleanor. And the last message, sent just a few minutes ago by Mark, said something that made my blood run cold. "Perfect," we convinced the old lady. "She's going to take care of all the brats while we get drunk in peace." The best part is she doesn't even suspect we've been planning this for months. My hands trembled so much. I almost dropped Caroline's phone. Christmas Without Eleanor. That was the name of the secret group where they had been planning my humiliation for months. With my heart shattered but my curiosity stronger than the pain, I decided to read everything. Every message, every conspiracy, every laugh behind my back. The group had 18 participants, all my children, my daughters-in-law, my sons-in-law, even my older grandchildren. All of them, absolutely all of them had been making fun of me while I, like an idiot, was spending my savings to give them the Christmas of their dreams. I scrolled up to see the older messages, and what I found destroyed my soul. A message from Kevin, from November 15th. "Did you guys tell Mom she's going to be the official babysitter yet? Ha ha ha. I hope she doesn't realize we've been planning this since October. October. They had been laughing at me since October." Mark's reply. "Relax. Your mom is so naive she believes anything we tell her. Yesterday I told her we needed $200 bottles of wine, and she didn't even protest. It's like having a walking credit card. A walking credit card." Those were the exact words my son-in-law used to describe the woman who had welcomed him as a son for 15 years. I kept reading, tears streaming down my wrinkled cheeks. A message from Haley. "Grandma is so predictable. You just tell her it's for the family and she'll do whatever you want. This year I'm not even going to pretend to help her with anything." My own granddaughter, the girl I had practically raised from a baby while her mother worked, talking about me as if I were her enemy. Megan's reply. "The best part is that she feels useful. She thinks we need her. She doesn't know that we really just need her money and her house. She feels useful, as if my love, my sacrifice, my devotion were symptoms of stupidity and not generosity." But the message that hurt the most came from Caroline, my own daughter, the one who had come from my womb, the one I had raised with so much love. "Guys, it's all set. Mom is going to pay the $140,000. She's going to serve the food, clean everything, and watch all 12 kids while we enjoy ourselves. Honestly, we couldn't have found a better maid. And for free, on top of it all. A free maid. My own daughter had reduced me to that. 40 years of caring for her, protecting her, sacrificing for her, and this is how she saw me. As a free maid, to be exploited until exhaustion. I kept reading more recent messages. Evan, my youngest son-in-law, had written, "Does anyone else feel bad for Eleanor? I mean, it's a lot of work for a woman her age." For a moment, I thought at least one person in my family had a conscience. But the reply from Daniel, my youngest son, took away that last shred of hope. "You feel bad? Please, Evan. She chose to be this way. Nobody is forcing her. If she likes to serve and pay for everything, let her. It's her problem. Her problem. My unconditional love for my family was my problem. My generosity was my problem. My inability to say no was my problem. And they, my own children, instead of protecting me from my own kindness, had turned it into their personal gold mine. The most recent message was from last night, sent by Mark after he and Caroline left my house. Mission accomplished. We convinced her that being a babysitter was an honor. Tomorrow I'll confirm the reservation at the bar for after dinner. While the old lady stays with the brats, we'll go celebrate the real Christmas at the place we deserve. The real Christmas at the place they deserve. They had plans to leave after eating the meal I had paid for, leaving me alone with 12 children in my empty house while they partied at a luxury bar. And I, as always, cleaning, caring, serving until dawn. But there was more. An even crueler plan that chilled my blood. Kevin had proposed something that the others had enthusiastically accepted. What do you guys think if we tell Mom that next year we'll organize everything at her house too? That way we establish a tradition and we never have to worry about the holidays again. A tradition. They wanted to turn my exploitation into an annual family tradition. $140,000 every Christmas. My house turned into a restaurant and daycare, and me turned into their personal employee until the day I died. The replies to that proposal were even worse. Great idea, Kevin. Yeah, it makes her feel important organizing everything. It's the only thing she knows how to do well. Let's just let her. As if organizing a $140,000 party was trivial. As if watching 12 children all night was a fun hobby. The last message in the group finished breaking my heart. It was from Paul, my quietest son-in-law, the one I always thought respected me. I just hope Eleanor doesn't get difficult during the party, that she understands her place and doesn't try to mingle with us adults. She should stay in the kitchen and the kids' room where she belongs. Where she belongs. According to my family, my place in my own home, at my own party, paid for with my own money, was hidden in the kitchen and the kids' room. Invisible. Useful but invisible. I closed the phone with my hands still trembling and stood there in my dark living room, surrounded by all the Christmas decorations I had bought to make a family who despised me happy. The tree lights faintly illuminated my tear-streaked face, and for the first time in 72 years of life, I felt a rage so pure, so fiery, that it burned me from the inside. It wasn't pain anymore. It wasn't sadness. It was fury. A fury that had been building for decades of humiliation and had finally found a valid reason to exist. It wasn't just that they had used me. It was that they had turned my love into their weapon against me. They had made my generosity their birthright. But what hurt the most wasn't the cruel words or the selfish plans. It was the confirmation that to them, I had never been Eleanor, the woman, the person with feelings and dreams. To them, I was just a function, the one who pays, the one who serves, the one who cares, the one who cleans. A useful appliance that had to be kept running until it broke down for good. That morning, looking at the boxes of gifts I had bought for people who saw me as a servant, I made the most important decision of my life. A decision that was going to change everything. A decision that was going to teach them what it really meant to be left without Eleanor. But first, I had to plan my perfect revenge. A revenge that would be as painful as every single humiliation they had made me swallow for decades. A revenge that would leave them exactly where they deserved to be alone, hungry, and desperate, finally understanding the value of what they had lost forever. For the next 3 days, I acted like the same old Eleanor, smiling, helpful, obedient. But inside, my mind was working like never before, planning every detail of what would be the harshest lesson my family would ever receive. Every time Caroline called to confirm some detail of the party, every time Mark gave me another order, every time Kevin asked me for extra money, I smiled and nodded while inside I was calculating their destruction. On December 21st, 2 days before Christmas Eve, I began to execute my plan. The first thing I did was go to the bank and withdraw all the cash I had paid in advance to the vendors. It was my money, my savings, and I had every right to get it back. The teller gave me a strange look when I asked to withdraw so much cash, but I simply smiled and told her it was for a Christmas surprise. And what a surprise it was. Next, I went to the luxury caterer I had hired. "Mrs. Eleanor, so good to see you," the manager said with that professional smile that knew my financial standing. "I'm here to make some last-minute changes to the menu." I said with the sweetest voice I could feign. In fact, I think I'm going to cancel the entire service. The man's face changed immediately. Cancel? But ma'am, it's only 2 days away. We have everything prepared, the ingredients bought, the staff assigned, perfect. Exactly the reaction I was hoping for. Yes, I know, I said with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. But it turns out my children have decided to have this celebration somewhere else. A last-minute surprise. Lie after lie, but each one gave me more pleasure than all the fake smiles I had given away for years. I understand your situation, ma'am, but you must understand that canceling on such short notice incurs costs. We can refund 70% of the payment. 70%, nearly $100,000 back in my account. Money that wasn't going to end up feeding people who despised me. Perfect, I said, signing the cancellation papers. And please, confirm that you will not be delivering anything to my address on December 25th. The man nodded, confused but obligated to comply with my request. My next stop was the premium liquor store, where I had ordered wine, champagne, and spirits worth $15,000. Good morning. I'm here for my special order, I told the clerk who already knew me. The one for the 25th? Yes, it's already here. 20 cases of the finest bottles, labeled and set aside especially for my grand celebration. Actually, I said as he prepared everything for delivery, I've changed my mind. I want to return everything. The man froze with a bottle of champagne in his hands. Return? Ma'am, these are special beverages we ordered specifically for you. I understand perfectly, I replied with a calmness that surprised even me. But my family has decided to be simpler this year. Less materialistic, more spiritual. The irony of my words gave me the strength to continue the lie. You can keep 10% for the trouble. $13,500 back in my pocket. Money that wasn't going to get people drunk who planned to abandon me with 12 children to go celebrate the real Christmas without me. But my masterstroke was with the gifts. I had spent over $20,000 on gifts for 36 people. Expensive toys for the children, jewelry for the women, watches and gadgets for the men, all bought with love, with the hope of seeing happy faces on Christmas Day. Now, every gift felt like a slap I had given to myself. I went from store to store, returning everything. Are you sure, ma'am? Each salesperson asked. These are beautiful gifts. Yes, they were beautiful, but they were intended for people who were ugly on the inside, people who didn't deserve even a piece of candy from me. By the end of the day, I had recovered over $120,000. Money that I had been on the verge of giving away to people who saw me as a servant. Money that I was now going to use for my own happiness, for my own freedom. But I wasn't finished yet. On December 23rd, the eve of Christmas Eve, I executed the most satisfying part of my revenge. It was the day of final preparations, when I would normally be running around like a madwoman cleaning, decorating, and cooking to welcome the family the next day. Instead, I got up early, took a calm bath, and put on my prettiest purple dress, the one I had bought years ago but never wore because it wasn't appropriate for a grandmother. What nonsense! At 72, nothing was inappropriate if it made me happy. I called a luxury travel agency. Good morning. I need to book the best package you have available for tomorrow, December 24th. The operator laughed softly. Ma'am, tomorrow is Christmas Eve. It's very difficult to get anything last minute, and the prices are very high. Money is not an issue, I said with a confidence I had never felt before. I want the best cruise, the best hotel, the best experience you can offer. For one person who wants to celebrate her freedom. Freedom. What a beautiful word it sounded on my lips. Well, I have a luxury cruise leaving tomorrow at noon for the Caribbean. Presidential suite, personal butler service, spa, gourmet restaurants. 7 days, $15,000. Are you interested? $15,000 for myself. 1/10 of what I had been about to spend for my family to humiliate me. Perfect, I said without a moment's hesitation. I'll take it. While I was making the reservation, my phone started ringing. It was Caroline. Mom, where are you? We need to start with the preparations. There are 1,000 things to do for tomorrow. 1,000 things that I had to do, of course. I'm downtown, picking up the last few details. I lied with an ease that both scared and liberated me. I'll be there in a few hours. I was not going to be there. Never again would I come running when they called. My last stop was the florist where I had ordered $3,000 worth of centerpieces. Exotic flowers, spectacular arrangements that had taken weeks of preparation. "Mrs. Eleanor, your flowers are ready. They are the most beautiful we've made this year," the florist told me with genuine pride. "They look lovely," I admitted, and they truly were. But I've decided to change the theme of the party, something more minimalist. The woman looked at me with confusion, but the customer was always right. I could cancel the delivery and get a refund, $3,000 more back in my account. Money that wasn't going to adorn a table where I would be treated like the invisible servant. That night, as I packed my suitcase for the cruise, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Caroline, Mark, Kevin, all asking where I was, why I hadn't come home, what was happening with the last-minute preparations. I sent them reassuring messages. "I'm fine. I'll be there early tomorrow with the last surprises." The last surprise. They were going to get the surprise of their lives when they arrived at my empty house. No food, no drinks, no gifts, no decorations, and no me. They were going to discover what a Christmas without Eleanor truly meant. But before I left, I had to leave something behind. Something that would explain to them exactly why they had lost not only their Christmas dinner but also the woman who had loved them unconditionally for decades. I sat at my desk and wrote the most honest letter of my life. A letter that I would leave on the empty dining room table, along with screenshots of the Christmas without Eleanor WhatsApp group. A letter that would forever change the relationship I had with my family. Or rather, the lack of a relationship we would have from that moment on. The letter I wrote that night was the most difficult and the most liberating of my life. Every word I put on paper was like pulling out a thorn that had been stuck in my heart for years. With each line, I felt the guilt fade away and a dignity was born that had been buried under decades of family manipulation. "Dear family," I began, though the word dear tasted bitter in my mouth. "By the time you read this letter, I will have already departed to celebrate Christmas as a free woman should. Away from exploitation, away from humiliation, away from you. For 72 years, I believed that loving family meant sacrificing without limits. I believed that being a good mother and grandmother meant bleeding myself dry financially and emotionally so that you could be happy. I was wrong. True love does not demand the destruction of the one who loves." I paused to look at the color printouts of the Christmas without Eleanor group chat. Every cruel message, every joke, every plan to exploit me was there, in black and white, as evidence of a betrayal that would hurt me forever. "I found your WhatsApp group by chance. Yes, I know everything. I know that since October you have been planning to turn me into your official servant. I know that you see me as a walking credit card. I know that to you, I am just to function the one who pays, the one who serves, the one who takes care of what you don't want to. I know you plan to abandon me with 12 children after eating the food I paid for to go to a luxury bar to celebrate your real Christmas. I know you wanted to turn my exploitation into an annual tradition. I know that Mark considers me less than human, that Haley is ashamed to help me, that Kevin sees me as an ATM, and that Caroline, my own daughter, describes me as a free maid. Period. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I wrote, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of relief. I was finally telling them the truth I had kept silent for decades. But what hurts me the most are not your cruel words. It is realizing that you never saw me as a person. To you, I am not Eleanor, the woman who has dreams, needs, feelings. I am just a resource to be exploited until exhaustion, a useful appliance that must work perfectly until it breaks down. That is why I decided to give you exactly what you asked for. A Christmas without Eleanor. There will be no food because I canceled it. There will be no drinks because I returned them. There will be no gifts because I took them back. There will be no decorations because I made them disappear. And there will be no me, because I finally understood that I deserve to be where I am valued. The $140,000 of my money that you were going to spend is back in my bank account. Money that I will use to live the rest of my life with dignity, surrounded by people who appreciate me for who I am, not for what I can give them. I paused again to imagine their faces when they arrived the next day and found the empty house, the confusion, the desperation, the rage, and for the first time in years, the thought of their suffering did not cause me pain. It caused me a deep and deserved satisfaction. Do not expect me to return. Do not expect me to forgive. Do not expect me to go back to being the Eleanor you could step on whenever you wanted. That woman died on December 20th when she read what you really think of her. The woman I am now does not accept crumbs of respect or leftovers of affection. If one day you feel genuine remorse, if one day you understand the magnitude of the damage you caused me, if one day you want a real relationship with me based on mutual respect and not on exploitation, my phone number is still the same. But don't hold your breath. I have learned to live without you, and the feeling is extraordinary. For the grandchildren who may not understand why Grandma disappeared, their parents will explain. And when they grow up, I hope they understand that no one, absolutely no one, deserves to be treated the way I was treated. That true love does not come with an invoice. I finished the letter with a closing that summarized everything I felt. You are left with your hunger, your thirst, your desperation, and your shame. I am leaving with my freedom. I think we both got exactly what we deserved. Have the Christmas you planned, without me. I signed it Eleanor, the free woman, and left the pages on the dining room table next to the screenshots that documented every humiliation. I wanted them to see their own words, to be confronted with the cruelty of their thoughts laid out in black and white. But before I left for good, I decided to take one last tour of the house where I had lived so many years of slavery disguised as family love, the kitchen where I had prepared thousands of meals for people who never thanked me, the living room where I had been humiliated so many times, the rooms where I had cleaned up after parties where I was the invisible servant. For the first time, I looked at these spaces without nostalgia, without attachment, without pain. They were just walls that had witnessed my degradation. Now, they would witness my liberation. I took my suitcase, walked out of the house without looking back, and headed to the taxi that was waiting to take me to the port where I would embark on the most luxurious cruise of my life. A cruise I was going to pay for with the money I had recovered from my own humiliation. During the ride to the port, my phone kept ringing. Caroline, Mom, where are you? It's getting very late. Mark, Eleanor, we need you to come now. The decorations are missing. Kevin, Mom, I can't find the keys to your house. Where did you leave them? To every message, I replied the same thing. I'll be there early tomorrow with everything. They would be there early tomorrow, yes. But I would be sailing toward my new life while they discovered the real cost of losing the woman who had loved them without limits. The ship was more beautiful than I had imagined. My suite had an ocean view, 24-hour butler service, and a private hot tub where I planned to spend Christmas Eve toasting to my freedom with French champagne. The same kind of champagne I had canceled for my family. As the ship pulled away from the port, I took out my phone to do something I had never done in my life. Turn it off completely on an important date. I was not going to be available for their pleas, their insults, or their manipulations. For the first time in 72 years, December 24th was going to be my day, completely mine. The last image I had of the city, before it disappeared over the horizon, was the Christmas lights shining in every house. Lights that promised family, love, unity. But I had learned that not all families deserve those promises. Some deserve exactly what my family was going to get tomorrow, the complete darkness of an empty house and a table without food. The sea was calm. Like my conscience, I had finally done the right thing. I had finally put myself first. And the feeling was so extraordinary that I wondered why it had taken me 72 years to discover it. December 24th, 10 in the morning. While I was having caviar and smoked salmon for breakfast on the terrace of my presidential suite, looking out at the Caribbean Sea with a tranquility I hadn't felt in decades, my phone remained off at the bottom of my purse. I had no idea what was happening at my house, but I could imagine it perfectly, and every mental image filled me with a satisfaction I never thought I could feel. The reality was even better than I imagined. I would later learn every detail of the chaos that erupted when my dear family arrived to celebrate their perfect Christmas. Caroline was the first to arrive at 8 in the morning, carrying the few things she had promised to bring herself: paper napkins and some cheap sodas. She arrived with her usual arrogance, expecting to find me running from one place to another, finalizing the details of the party she considered her birthright. "Mom!" she shouted from the entrance, carrying her insignificant bags. "I'm here. Where are you?" Silence. The house was strangely silent. There was no sound of preparations, no smell of food, no Christmas music, just a silence that made the hair on her arms stand up. "Mom?" she shouted again, now with a touch of irritation. "Don't tell me you're still sleeping. We have 1,000 things to do." She walked toward the kitchen, expecting to find me preparing breakfast for the family, as I had done for the last 20 years on Christmas Eve. The kitchen was empty. Clean, tidy, but empty. There was no food cooking, no ingredients on the counters, no sign of the massive preparations that were supposed to be happening. "That's weird," she muttered, feeling a pang of concern for the first time. She went up to my room. The bed was made, but the room had that strange feeling of abandonment you only perceive when someone has left for good. The closet was slightly empty. A few things were missing, but Caroline was too worried about the party to notice the details. She went down to the dining room, and that's where she found the first clue of what was really happening. My letter was folded on the empty table, next to an envelope with photos she didn't dare open immediately. "What the hell is this?" she muttered, opening the letter with hands that were already beginning to tremble. As Caroline read the first lines of my confession, Mark arrived with Haley and their 2 young children. They entered talking and laughing, expecting to find a house transformed into the Christmas paradise they had been dreaming of for months. "Where is everything?" was the first thing Haley asked, looking at the empty dining room. "Where are the decorations? Where's the food?" Mark frowned, clearly annoyed. "Eleanor must be running late. As usual, she's going to keep us waiting." "She's not late," Caroline said, her voice already sounding broken. "Read this." She handed them my letter with trembling hands. Mark took it arrogantly, as if it were another whim of the crazy old woman he had for a mother-in-law. But as he read, his face changed from irritation to confusion, from confusion to panic. "This has to be a joke," he muttered. "What's this about a WhatsApp group? What is she talking about?" Caroline opened the envelope with the screenshots and turned deathly pale. Oh my God, she saw everything. She saw all our messages. Haley snatched the pages from her mother's hands. "No way. How did she get into our group?" But it was all there, every cruel message, every joke, every plan to exploit me, every derogatory word they had written, thinking I would never find out. "We are screwed," Mark muttered. "Completely screwed. Where's the food? Where are the drinks? What are we going to do with 36 people arriving in a few hours?" At that moment, Kevin arrived with his wife Megan and their 4 children. They entered shouting "Merry Christmas" and carrying only a single bottle of cheap wine, their sole contribution to a $140,000 party. "Where's Mom?" Kevin asked. "And where is everything else?" They didn't have to answer him. The panicked expressions on the faces of Caroline, Mark, and Haley told him everything he needed to know. "What happened?" he asked, his voice already sounding desperate. They gave him the letter to read. Kevin collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. "It can't be. She can't have done this to us. It's Christmas Eve." Megan read the screenshots with growing horror. "Kevin, here's the message where you said she was. Predictable, and that it was. Like having a walking credit card. Period. That was just a joke," Kevin defended himself weakly. "She knows that. She knows I wasn't serious, but even he knew it was a lie. Every word they had written was exactly what they thought. And now I knew it too." At 10 in the morning, the other family members began to arrive. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all carrying only small, symbolic contributions. A salad, some bread, a few homemade sweets. All expecting to find the table set, the food served, the gifts distributed, and Eleanor running around to meet their needs as she had for decades. Instead, they found an empty house, a family in a panic, and the crushing reality that they had lost not only their Christmas dinner, but the woman who had been the heart of all their celebrations. "What do you mean there's no food?" my sister Susan asked, horrified. "What do you mean Eleanor left?" Evan, my youngest son-in-law, was reading my letter for the 5th time. It says she canceled everything. The catering, the drinks, the gifts, everything. "So what do we do now?" asked Daniel, my youngest son. "We have 12 hungry kids, 24 adults expecting a luxury dinner, and absolutely nothing to offer them." The situation grew more desperate by the minute. The children began to cry from hunger. There wasn't even a Christmas cookie in the whole house. The adults started blaming each other, shouting, fighting. The perfect atmosphere they had dreamed of turned into a nightmare of accusations and panic. "This is your fault," Mark yelled at Caroline. "You were the one who organized that stupid group." "My fault?" Caroline screamed back. Everyone participated. Everyone made fun of her. Haley was crying inconsolably. "What are we going to say on social media? I told all my friends it was going to be the most incredible Christmas of the year." Her concern was not for me, for the damage they had caused, but for her public image. Kevin was desperately trying to call me. "Her phone is off," he reported in a defeated voice. "Completely off. For the first time in their adult lives, they couldn't reach me when they needed me. And they needed me desperately." At noon, with the house full of hungry and confused relatives, they made a desperate decision. "We'll go to restaurants," Mark announced. "Someone has to be open on Christmas Eve." But it was December 24th. Everything was either closed or fully booked. The few open places had 2-hour wait lists for single tables, and they needed space for 36 people. It was impossible. While they were living their Christmas hell, I was enjoying the most delicious lunch of my life in the cruise ship's main dining room, surrounded by elegant and happy people, being waited on like the queen I always should have been. For the first time in decades, someone was serving me. And the feeling was absolutely glorious. While I was enjoying a relaxing massage in the cruise ship spa with a view of the infinite ocean and a glass of French champagne on the table, my family was experiencing the most humiliating collapse of their lives. What had begun as panic over the lack of food turned into a family war that revealed the worst in each of them. At 2 p.m, after calling more than 20 restaurants without getting a single table, Mark made a desperate decision. "Let's go to the grocery store," he announced. "We'll buy what we can and make something ourselves." The irony was delicious. The man who had called me a walking credit card was now forced to spend his own money. The group split into several cars and headed to the only grocery store open on Christmas Eve. What they found was a desolate scene. Practically empty shelves, long lines, and inflated prices for the holiday. The few remaining turkeys cost triple the normal price, and there weren't even enough to feed 36 people. "This is ridiculous," Haley screamed in the middle of the grocery store. "They can't charge us $300 for a miserable turkey." But they had no choice. It was that or nothing. And after so many years of eating for free from my table, paying real prices for real food was a brutal shock for all of them. Caroline was crying as she pushed the shopping cart. "I can't believe what we've done," she sobbed. "Mom loved us so much. And we treated her like garbage." Mark, who was carrying the heaviest groceries because no one else wanted to, was furious. "Stop crying and help me. This is your fault for creating that stupid group." "My fault?" Caroline shouted in the middle of the meat section. "You were the one who said she was a walking credit card. You were the one who proposed abandoning her with the kids." The other shoppers stared at them with curiosity and disgust. It was a pathetic spectacle. Wealthy adults fighting like children in a grocery store. Meanwhile, back at my house, the children had become uncontrollable. Without the structure I always provided, without the food I always had ready, without the toys and activities I always organized, they were a mass of destructive energy. They broke 2 lamps, spilled juice on the new sofa, and turned the living room into a battlefield. Susan, my sister, tried to maintain order, but she was overwhelmed. "Where are your parents?" she asked the older children. "Why aren't they watching you?" Evan, who had been reluctantly appointed as the temporary guardian, answered with brutal honesty. "Because Eleanor always did it. We never learned how. We never learned how." Those words perfectly summed up the problem. For decades, I had done everything so well that they never developed the basic skills to handle their own responsibilities. Without me, they were completely useless. At 4 p.m, they returned from the grocery store with bags full of expensive ingredients and faces of total defeat. They had spent over $2,000 on mediocre quality food. $2,000 they normally would have spent on clothes, entertainment, or personal whims. "Well," Lazaro announced, trying to sound optimistic, "now we just have to cook everything." A dead silence. No one knew how to cook for 36 people. I had always worked the magic in the kitchen, and they simply showed up to eat. Megan tried to take the lead. "I can make the turkey," she said without much conviction. "How long does it take?" No one knew. Caroline looked it up on Google. "It says here a 20-pound turkey needs at least 5 hours in the oven." 5 hours. It was 4 in the afternoon. Dinner would be ready at 9 o'clock at night if everything went well. And it did not go well. Nothing went well. The first turkey burned on the outside and was raw on the inside because they didn't know how to regulate the oven. The mashed potatoes were full of lumps because no one knew the technique I had perfected over years. The vegetables were cooked until they became an unrecognizable green mush. But the worst part was the atmosphere. Without me there to maintain harmony, to smooth over tensions, to mediate conflicts, the family showed its true face. Mark blamed Caroline for the whole disaster. Caroline blamed Kevin for not helping more. Kevin blamed Haley for being useless. And everyone, at some point, blamed me for abandoning them at the most important time of the year. "How could she do this to us?" Megan cried as she tried to save a sauce that had curdled. How could she be so cruel? Evan, who was the only one who seemed to understand the magnitude of what they had done, confronted her. "Cruel? Did you read the messages we sent? Did you see how we treated her?" "They were just jokes," Mark shouted. Though no one believed that lie anymore. "She knows we love her." "Is that how you show someone you love them?" Evan replied. "By calling her a free maid? By planning to abandon her with 12 kids?" The children, meanwhile, had found the screenshots I had left and were passing them from hand to hand. Some of the older ones could read well enough to understand how cruel their parents had been to me. "Dad," Kevin's 10-year-old son asked, "is it true you called Grandma a walking credit card?" Kevin turned red with shame. He couldn't deny something that was written with his own name on it. "Son, it's complicated. Adults sometimes say things we don't mean. But it says here you wanted it to be a tradition," the boy insisted. "That every year Grandma would pay for everything and watch all the kids." The innocence of the children was exposing the hypocrisy of the adults in a way that no rational argument had managed to do. "Why did Grandma have to watch us if our parents were there?" Mark's 8-year-old daughter asked. "Why did she have to pay for our food if we're not poor?" Simple questions with answers that no adult wanted to give. Because the truth was that they had used me, they had exploited me, and they had reduced me to a convenient resource they could manipulate at will. At 8 o'clock at night, after 4 hours of culinary disasters, they finally managed to serve something resembling a Christmas dinner. Dry and burnt turkey, lumpy mashed potatoes, mushy vegetables, and a tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. 36 people sitting around makeshift tables, eating terrible food in an atmosphere of family civil war. "We should make a toast," Susan suggested, trying to salvage something of the Christmas tradition. To family. An uncomfortable silence. How could they toast to family when they had just destroyed the person who had been its heart for decades? "To Eleanor," Evan finally said, raising his glass of water because no one had bought wine. "To the woman who loved us more than we deserved and whom we treated worse than anyone deserves to be treated." Some people cried. Others got angry. But they all understood, for the first time in their lives, what a Christmas without me really meant. It wasn't just the lack of good food or pretty decorations. It was the complete absence of unconditional love, of family harmony, of the warmth that I had provided for decades without asking for anything in return except respect and affection. And while they were experiencing this painful revelation, I was having fresh lobster for dinner at the most exclusive restaurant on the ship, toasting with champagne and crystal to my new life, surrounded by people who treated me like the distinguished lady I had always been on the inside, but had never been able to be on the outside. The difference was abysmal. They in the hell of their own creation, I in the paradise of my deserved freedom. Exactly as it should be. December 26th, 6 in the morning. After the worst Christmas of their lives, my family had spent a sleepless night, alternating between tears, guilt, and total desperation. While I woke up in my luxury suite overlooking the Caribbean sunrise, greeted with breakfast in bed and fresh flowers, they were facing the crushing reality of what they had lost forever. Caroline was the first to try to contact me. By 5 in the morning, she was already dialing my number obsessively, hearing the same message over and over. The number you have dialed is out of the service area. Her desperation grew with each failed attempt. For her entire adult life, I had always been available to her. Always. And now, when she needed me most, I had completely disappeared. Mark had spent the night researching travel agencies, hotels, cruises, any clue as to where I might be. She has to be somewhere in the city, he insisted, refusing to accept that I would have had the guts to go truly far. Old ladies don't make such drastic decisions. How wrong he was. This old lady had made the most drastic and liberating decision of her entire life. The children woke up hungry and grumpy. Without my traditional breakfasts, without the routine I had maintained for decades, they were completely lost. "Where's my special cereal?" the youngest granddaughter cried. "Where are my heart-shaped pancakes that Grandma makes?" "Grandma isn't here," Haley replied with a broken voice. "Grandma left." "Why?" "Because we were very mean to her." It was the first time in years that Haley had admitted to doing something wrong. She had always been the spoiled princess who never faced consequences for her actions. Kevin arrived early that morning, his eyes red from lack of sleep. "Any news on Mom?" he asked in a desperate voice. When everyone shook their heads, he collapsed onto the sofa the children had stained the day before. "We're screwed," he muttered. "Completely screwed." And he was right. It wasn't just the humiliation of the ruined Christmas. It was everything I represented in their lives that they had never valued until they lost it. I was their emotional and financial safety net. I was the one who watched their kids during emergencies. I was the one who helped them financially when they had problems. I was the glue that held that dysfunctional family together. Without me, they began to realize how helpless they had become. None of them knew how to properly care for children for long periods. None had the patience to mediate family conflicts. None had the emotional resources to be the heart of the family. "We have to find her," Caroline declared with desperate determination. "We have to explain to her that the messages weren't serious, that it was just a bad joke." But Evan, who had become the voice of reason amid the chaos, confronted her harshly. "A joke?" he asked incredulously. "Caroline, we planned for months to use her as a babysitter while we went to a bar. We wanted to make this an annual tradition. We were going to ruin every Christmas for the rest of her life. How the hell is that a joke?" Evan's words landed like bombs in the room. For the first time, they all faced the truth without excuses, without justifications, without white lies. They had systematically planned to exploit a 72-year-old woman who loved them unconditionally. "But she knows we love her," Megan sobbed. "She knows we didn't mean it." "How would she know that?" Susan replied with a harshness that surprised everyone. "When was the last time any of you said, 'I love you,' without asking for something in return? When was the last time you visited her just to see her? Not because you needed money or help." A dead silence. No one could answer, because the answer was too shameful. Years. It had been years since any of them had treated Eleanor like a loved one instead of a useful resource. Mark tried to take control of the situation. "Okay, enough with the regrets. We need to do something practical. We'll hire a private investigator. We'll find her and bring her back." But Daniel, my youngest son, stopped him with a devastating question. "And then what?" he asked. "We bring her back to keep treating her the same way, to keep using and humiliating her? What are we going to offer her that's different from what she had before?" It was the million-dollar question, literally, because I had spent over $1 million on that family over the past 10 years, and all I had received in return was contempt disguised as familiarity. "We can change," Caroline muttered, without much conviction. "We can treat her better." "How?" Evan insisted. "Are you going to start paying her to watch your kids? Are you going to stop using her house as a free restaurant? Are you going to treat her like a guest instead of a servant at her own parties?" Evan's questions exposed the absurdity of the situation. They didn't really want to change. They just wanted me to come back so they could continue taking advantage of me, but with a little more subtlety. While they were having this brutal but necessary conversation, I was participating in a salsa class on the deck of the cruise ship, laughing like I hadn't laughed in years, feeling alive in a way I had forgotten was possible. A distinguished 75-year-old gentleman had asked me to dance, and for the first time in decades, someone was treating me like a desirable woman instead of an exhausted grandmother. "Are you here alone?" The gentleman, whose name was Arthur, asked me during a break. "Yes," I replied with a radiant smile, "and it's the first time in 72 years that I can say that with complete happiness." Back at my old house, the practical reality of my absence was beginning to hit them hard. The children needed to be taken to their activities, but no one remembered the schedules I had perfectly organized in my head. The house needed cleaning after the Christmas disaster, but no one had the energy or experience to do it efficiently. Worse, the bills began to arrive. The monthly bills I always paid discreetly: the electricity for Kevin's house, the grandchildren's health insurance, the private school tuition, the car loans I had co-signed. Without me, all these expenses fell directly on them. "I didn't know Mom was paying my mortgage," Kevin muttered, looking at a statement that had arrived in the mail. "It's $3,000 a month." Caroline checked her own finances and discovered the same thing. I had been secretly subsidizing the luxury lives of my adult children for years. "How are we going to pay for all this?" Megan asked, mentally calculating her monthly expenses. Without my silent contributions, none of them could maintain their current lifestyle. It was the final blow. They hadn't just lost my love and my presence. They had lost their financial stability, their childcare support network, and their source of family conflict resolution. They had destroyed the entire ecosystem of their comfort for the cruel pleasure of making fun of me in a WhatsApp group. At 6 in the evening on the 26th, Caroline made the desperate decision to go to my bank. "Maybe they know something there," she reasoned. "Maybe she made a transaction that will give us a clue." But when she arrived, she discovered something even more devastating. "Mrs. Eleanor?" the manager asked. "Yes, she was here a few days ago. She closed several accounts and withdrew a considerable amount of cash. She mentioned something about a new beginning." A new beginning. I wasn't hiding, waiting to be found. I had closed chapters of my old life and started a completely new one. That night, sitting in my still messy living room, surrounded by the remnants of the worst Christmas of their lives, my family finally understood the magnitude of what they had done. They hadn't just lost a dinner or a party. They had lost the person who had given shape and meaning to their lives for decades. And as they processed this devastating loss, I was on the deck of my cruise ship, watching the stars reflected in the dark sea, toasting with champagne to the free woman who had finally found the courage to put her own happiness first. The difference between our two realities that night was perfect poetic justice. They facing the consequences of their actions, I enjoying the rewards of my courage. Exactly as it should be in a just world. For the first time in 72 years, I was exactly where I deserved to be. 6 months later, sitting on the terrace of my new oceanfront home in Costa Rica, I receive a letter postmarked from my hometown. It's from Caroline, the first communication I've had with my family since that Christmas that changed everything forever. My hands no longer tremble when I read painful things. The past few months have taught me a strength I never knew I had. With a cup of fresh coffee and the sound of the waves as background music, I open the letter that arrived after so much silence. "Dear Mom," it begins, and I can feel the weight of every word. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know how things have changed since you left. I need you to know how much we've learned about ourselves, and how much it hurts to live with the consequences of our actions." I continue reading as the Caribbean sun warms my tanned skin. Caroline tells me that Kevin had to sell his house because he couldn't keep up with the mortgage without my silent help. That Mark is working double shifts to pay off the debts I had been covering. That Haley, for the first time in her life, got a part-time job because her parents can no longer give her everything she wants. "The children ask about you every day," she writes, "especially on special occasions. Sophia's birthday was last week, and she cried because Grandma always made the most beautiful cakes in the world. We didn't know what to tell her. A small part of me feels a pang of nostalgia, but it's quickly balanced by the memory of all those cakes I made for years without a single sincere thank you. All those birthdays where I was the invisible employee who made others' fun possible. But what has changed the most is how we see ourselves, the letter continues. Without you there to solve our problems, to watch our kids, to keep the family peace, we realized how useless we had become. We realized we had stopped being functional adults because you did everything for us. I smile slightly. It was exactly what I had hoped would happen. It wasn't enough to make me return, but at least they had learned something of value about themselves. Caroline tells me the family almost completely disintegrated after my departure. Without me as the gravitational center, the tensions I had always smoothed over exploded into open conflicts. She and Mark are in the process of divorcing. Kevin and Megan barely speak. The cousins who used to gather at my house for holidays now spend important dates alone, each dealing with their own problems. The house feels like a mausoleum, she writes. No one wants to go there. Everything reminds us of you, of your presence, of everything you gave that we never knew how to appreciate. We've put the house up for sale. No one can live there after what we did. I close my eyes and feel the sea breeze on my face. My old house, the place where I lived so many years of emotional slavery, where I spent so much money and energy on people who despised me, is finally going to change hands. It is symbolic and fitting. Mom, I know you probably think this is too little, too late, but I need to tell you that we understand. We understand that you were not our free employee. We understand that your love had value and that we wasted it. We understand that being family doesn't mean having the right to exploit someone. I open my eyes and look out at the infinite horizon. They have understood, yes, but understanding and deserving forgiveness are completely different things. The letter continues with apologies that sound sincere but arrive far too late. Caroline tells me they've gone to family therapy, that they are learning to be better parents, better people, that Evan, the only one who had shown any conscience during the whole disaster, is helping the others process their guilt and remorse. I'm not asking you to come back, she writes near the end. After everything we did to you, I don't have the right to ask you for anything. I just wanted you to know that your sacrifice was not completely in vain. You taught us, in the hardest way possible, what it really means to value someone. I finish reading and fold the letter carefully. I walk into my house, which I decorated exactly as I always wanted. Vibrant colors, local art, open spaces filled with light. A house that is completely mine, where no one shouts orders at me, where no one expects me to serve food or clean up others' messes. In these 6 months, I have made more real friends than in the last 10 years of my previous life. Neighbors who invite me to dinner because they enjoy my company, not because they need something from me. A book club where my opinion is valued. Painting classes where I can finally explore the creativity I never had time to develop. I also reconnected with Arthur, the gentleman from the cruise, who turned out to be a widower like me, and who perfectly understands the value of starting a new life at our age. It's not a passionate movie romance, but it's something real, based on mutual respect and genuine companionship. He treats me like the lady I am, not the servant my family turned me into. I put Caroline's letter in a box where I keep other mementos from my previous life. I'm not going to answer it, at least not now. Maybe never. Because although I appreciate that they've learned something from all this pain, my new life is too precious to risk. I have discovered that true family is not the one that shares your blood, but the one that shares your values. My family now are my neighbors who sincerely care about my well-being, the friends who celebrate my small triumphs, the people who see me as Eleanor the person, not Eleanor the function. That night, as I dine on fresh lobster at my favorite restaurant in town, I silently toast to the brave woman who finally found the strength to say no more. To all the years of happiness that lie ahead of me. To all the sunrises I will see without guilt, without obligations, without people shouting orders at me. The family that exploited me can keep their learned lessons and their remorse. I'll keep something much better. My freedom, my dignity, and the absolute certainty that I will never, ever again allow someone to turn my love into their weapon against me. At 72 years old, I finally learned the most important lesson of my life. Family is not exploitation. Help must be voluntary, not an obligation, and true love never comes with an invoice. This is my new Christmas, my new life, my new me, and it is infinitely better than everything I left behind.